Now, you may have heard in the news that Taoiseach has all but ruled out full redress for homeowners impacted by mica, claiming it would open the floodgates for other groups. Leo Varadkar, speaking on this, warned that providing 100% compensation could severely impact on the public finances, as other groups, including those living in defective apartments in his own constituency, would have to expect the same level of support. Now, the Taoiseach says the proposed compensation scheme will be presented to Cabinet early next month. Paddy Diver is one of the many homeowners affected in Donegal. He joins me now. Paddy, good morning.
Good morning there.
Thanks for joining us, Paddy. Can I ask what your reaction is? Because I have to say, when the Taoiseach made those comments this week, he basically, was kind of throwing you to the wolves and saying, well, sure, we can't give you full 100% compensation, because if we did that, we'd have to give it to everybody, and the taxpayer just simply can't be responsible for this. What was your reaction to that?
My reaction to that there was actually shocking, because I couldn't believe that he came out and said this here, because do you know what? He's right. The taxpayers should not have to withstand this bill. But my problem and my answer to Leo Varadkar, if I was standing in front of him, is Fine Gael, his party, were in power the whole way through this. And we warned them every year. We've sent them documents. I've got proof. I've got letters and emails here that the working group was set up in 2014, sent to Fine Gael about the problems in the quarries, and they didn't stop it. If they stopped it when they knew about it in 2014, they might have had a 200 million problem to solve.
Did you ever get a reply on that?
There's replies, there's emails, there's replies. Yes, there's replies there, and it's gone out in the Business Post at the weekend, all about it, and it's totally it reboots everything Leo says, because Leo went into power in 2017. Now, just imagine us here as a taxpayer, to have the leader of your country turning around and saying we cannot sustain this bill of us turning out now to a couple of billion. And you think, this man and this man's government have been warned about this every year and kept going about it. And then Leo himself gets into power in 2017 and does nothing. There's schools affected, public buildings affected, leisure centres affected, council houses affected. Can you imagine how much money that Fine Gael have wasted of taxpayers' money by not listening to the people and not listening to the truth? The houses are crumbling in Donegal. They were never going to get better. They know they're little blocks. He was actually in Donegal a way back and seeing the problems. And next thing then, the quarry would still be going to this day. Only I stopped it. I was on the phone to Joe McHugh, Fine Gael's representative, yesterday and this morning. And I said to Joe, it sickens me to think that the leader of our country, or the future leader, that's past and present government, but Leo, a man that was actually in power, is now turning around and saying that the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for this. The taxpayers are sick to the back teeth of standing up for Leo Varadkar's mistakes. There's £1 billion missing. There's £1 billion missing from the Children's Hospital. The scandal in Donegal, the mica scandal in Donegal and Mayo's pyrite, should have been stopped at least 5 or 6 years ago. Can you imagine the amount of houses that's been built in the last 5 and 6 years ago? And Leo Varadkar didn't do a thing about it. And now he's got the gall to turn around and say he's trying to put a separation there of people down the country that's not affected, and saying that it's not the taxpayers' fault.
I mean, we would have all assumed that there were regulations in place, that if anything went wrong in the building industry, that's what we have. What we were told were strict regulations at the time that were overseen by the government and passed by the government. What happened to those regulations, and why have they not been enforced, and why were they not enforced?
Well, so that's why we're looking for a public inquiry. We're looking for a public inquiry for them exact questions you said, and not just for a blame game in the past. It's to stop this happening in the future. That is what the public inquiry is for. Can you imagine in this country or any country in the world that has a £2 billion problem and nobody wants to know why it happens? How can a government not look for a public inquiry? Do you know why they won't look for a public inquiry? I'll tell you why. Because all fingers point back to them. I work in Dublin Times, and I've been talking to people at quarries. They go in individually and grab bags of stones and go away and test them. Up in Donegal and Mayo, Tipperary, and rural parts of Ireland, they lack in the regulations. As an Owen's book, or we man Owen, or what do you call it, Owen O'Brien, his book, he put out a book here lately, and he was in power of the Celtic Tiger, and he said that they wanted to regulate quarries, and they said, no, don't worry about them quarries. Them quarries are going for years. They have a good reputation. So they didn't bother going near them quarries. And call a spade a spade. If somebody's not watching you over your shoulder, you're doing everything right, then corners start being cut. And that's the bottom line.
The issue I think we have here, Paddy, is that we just assume that it's a Donegal and a West issue. It's not going to affect us down here. What would you say to people maybe who maybe turn a blind eye to it?
Oh, you're wrong. Oh, you're mild. You're so wrong. Because the quarry is not regulated, and actually then quarries they start cutting corners. That's the bottom line. And now it's filtered past from Donegal to Mayo. There's Sligo's on it. Limerick's on it. Mayo, Donegal, Mayo, Clare, Limerick, Tipperary. It's on your county. You go outside your house and start looking at them cracks that you thought was just settling cracks. They just might not be. Because whenever they get worse, there's no cure for this. If you look onto the Paddy Dover 4 Twitter page, or the Facebook page of the mica 100%, no less, if you see the way them houses are going, we haven't had a very bad winter now in a long time. The last bad frost we had was this year. But before that, the last 3 winters were very mild. And see if you get another couple of bad winters, a real hard frost, you want to see the damage this is going to do. And this is coming to Tipperary, because the government knows it in Tipperary. And a lot of people in Tipperary know. And what we're doing is we're trying to create our awareness. This is not Donegal again. This is not anything to do with climate change or something like that. This is family homes. This is the biggest disaster that anybody has ever seen. I'm telling you, I'm going back. This is as big as the church scandal, and this is as big as anything or the banking crisis. This is as big as everything I've seen. There's suicides going on up here. There's people who've written to the government, old age pensioners, have asked for emergency accommodation because they think the roof's going to fall down on top of them, and they get no replies. Like, your family home is supposed to be your safe haven. My 8-year-old daughter will not sleep in her own room. We had to move her single bed onto our room now because she's scared that the roof's going to fall down on top of her. Now, she's a bright young child, doing brilliant in school. Her exams or her grades is going downhill fast. And I know there's a class in Kilmany in Donegal. There's 16 people in the class. Now, there's 15 of them children that are affected. Our homes are affected by mica. There's marriages splitting up. It's completely a different level. I know an old age pensioner that told me her husband passed away last year, and she said she wished she was dead herself. She hasn't done her garden, because she used to have one of the gardens that was just the nicest garden in the whole estate. Now she won't even weed her driveway. She's chipping away at people's souls.
Paddy, can I ask, in your own case, when did you first start seeing signs that your home was affected?
I started seeing signs, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. The cracks they started appearing. Then I was like everybody else out there. A lot of people in Mayo and Clare and Tipperary is doing this, because I'd done it myself. I put it to the back of my head and I says, no, it's not me. I'm not one of them. Couldn't be. Please not. And I started going out to the shade, and I'd bring in my coal and my logs, and I'd walk with my head down, because I could see all the cracks starting to come, and I didn't want to realise the truth. Until one day, my father just passed away after a couple of months, and the same quarry that the problem was happening was still producing to the new council estate. So the problems that we were having was going to happen in the future, and they went up past my driveway, and I blocked it. And from that day on, it's been a revelation of what's actually happening out there, because I couldn't take it no more. Everything that I have worked for and dreamed for, and the proudest moment my mother ever says to me was whenever she's proud that I actually own my own family home, and I built it. By the last recession, I went over to England and Scotland to get work to build my family home, so my children and family had a secure place over their head. And that's just every dream of every Irish person, is to have a roof over a safe haven for their children. And I got it. And it was the proudest moment of my life. We moved in when my daughter was when we took her back from hospital. We wanted to make it a big thing. And 4 years, Savannah's 8 now. 4 years after that, it's never been the same. It's never been the same. Like, we can't even paint rooms inside because what's the point? The house is coming to the ground. It's been tossed. We haven't even bought a new picture for the house, and then in a couple of years. So what's the point? The house is coming down to the ground. Every day we go and we see a new crack. Our mental health is just, the house is deteriorating, but so is our mental health.
Yeah.
And I'm young fit. I'm young fit here. But what about single mothers? What about old age pensioners? Like, this government has been under power to look after people. That's what we vote them for. And the bottom line is, if they don't look after the people, well, the people should never ever vote them in again, because the one time we get in trouble, they can give the Apple $1.5 billion back to them. They can waste $1 billion or over $1 billion in the children's hospital. They can give the banks and the bondholders their money back. The last time the biking crash, it says $46 billion. But the one time at the family homes, because their fault, they didn't regulate quarries. They have a job in the European legislation to regulate quarries, and they didn't do it. They only look after the big city, Dublin. They don't care about what happens outside there, and that's the bottom line.
Paddy, can I ask you, a listener is making the point, what engineer signed off on these bills? Surely they're liable too.
Oh, exactly. There's so many people that's liable. We're at the bottom. The homeowners are at the bottom of the ladder of the people that's liable.
But yet you're facing the bill.
We're facing the bill. They've let the banks have get away. Like, I was on the phone to the banks. I said, what? I said, I have a second home, you see, as well. And I owe 85,000 a second home. And I phoned the banks. I said, why would I pay off us 85,000? I said, to give you your assets back. I said, when I was a young man, I said, at about 23 years of age, I said, when I got mortgage out, I said, I knew none. I said, you could have signed off by engineers, architects. I said, home bond. I said, the house insurance. I said, everybody was involved in this here. I said, except for little Paddy Dubber that knew nothing about houses or regulations or nothing. You thought you built a house, that was it. Your job was done, and that was it. And now everybody else has a way to the side, and the only people suffering is the homeowners. The banks have done nothing, even up until today. Pascal Donegal, 2017, they says they're in talks with the banks. Pascal Donegal come out yesterday and turn around and says, we're going to get in talks with the banks again. Like, what the hell is going on? The foxes are running the hen house here. Are they not fit for their job, or do they just not care about countries outside Donegal?
Paddy, were you involved in that protest outside the Dáil yesterday?
No, but my auntie was down. My auntie was at it. There's two people outside the Dáil every day in the whole of September. So there's every day, the whole of September, there's two people outside. That's not just a one-off protest. That happens every day of the week.
And are you getting much feedback from ministers, from anyone?
Well, what Leo Varadkar came out there is more or less was a kick in the teeth test.
Yeah.
Turned around there and tried to turn the rest of the country against us. Whenever it's, and in my eyes, I was put in front of a judge, and Leo Varadkar says, Your Honour, I don't think the taxpayers should have to pay for this. And when it was my time to speak, I would turn around and say, Your Honour, the man to blame for us here, standing right beside you, he could have stopped us here when he was in power. He knew all about it, and he never came to Donegal and stopped the quarries and faulted us here. Yeah. There's your man there at fault, and now he has no right, no harm to him.
I thought it was a really nasty thing to say, the way he said, well, sure, yeah, you can have it if you want, but it's the taxpayers that'll pay for it. I just thought it was really nasty.
You see, that's the problem. The taxpayers need to understand. They need to stand up to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Fine Gael have completely and utterly... Listen, my family and families before, for generations, were all Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and all the way. But Fine Gael need to get it through. They need to look at themselves and say, they don't care. They don't care, but outside Dublin, I only have to get into politics in the last 5 months. And Leo Varadkar completely shocks me. They can make mistake after mistake. They made 150 million. Like, their wages alone is the biggest wages in the whole of Europe. And you could go on and go on and go on about the mistakes. There's two, what was it? A couple of million on printers. If you go to Google and you Google Fine Gael's mistakes in the last 10 years, I was halfway through watching yesterday, and I was actually shocked myself that they're going to get back into power again for what they're doing. I said to Joe McHugh, if you can start, you just make it a clean slate. I said, if you finally stand up for family homes. I said, but gee, if you don't stand up for family homes now. I said, there'll be Donegal people that just have put through more or less fruit and early grave that will campaign against Fianna Fáil instead of everybody else goes out there every year and campaigns. I don't care who gets them. No, I mean, not saying I don't care who gets them the next time. But if Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil do not over get us here sorted and let people's lives get back to normal. I mean, people's lives are on their knees. Their mental health is to a different level that you will never understand unless you're living inside one of them houses.
Okay,
and
Paddy,
thousands of houses.
Just stay on the line with us there. Pat wants to come in on this conversation as well. Pat, good morning.
Morning, Alison.
Pat, it's incredible to think that it's the homeowner now that's being liable for this huge bill, that the engineers who signed off on it, as the listener said, they get off with it, the quarries get off on it. You'd imagine that the builder would have had some kind of home bond guarantee. There seems to be no sign of that. Is even home insurance, you think that should kind of step in at some point. Nothing seems to be available to these people. It's incredible.
You see, it seems to be the Irish way of dealing with this problem is to kind of not hold proper people responsible for this. Now, Paddy makes all the points, and he's really very much on top of the situation, and he emphasises what I was seeing. I know this is throughout. Different counties are affected with this, but when I saw Donegal, I was on holidays in Glencullen, and I said, could you not only put this picturesque house in this beautiful part of Ireland and have everything done for your family? What could happen? And this is a disaster that has happened here. And what should be emphasising this, first of all, you've said it already on your programme, this has not a thing to do with the taxpayers of this country.
Yeah.
The taxpayers of this country did not cause this problem. These people have been left down by people that are being paid by the taxpayers of this country that were not doing their job in quality control. Even at architectural level, when we were studying in college, we would have done porosity tests on bricks. We would have done chemical components to cement. We would have done stuff like effects of different stone, sandstone with limestone. We would have done that at architectural level. What we're talking about is very highly paid civil servants not doing their job in ensuring that these controls were in place. Now, in relation to even David Dunn was talking this morning about people protesting outside the Dáil. When I see these protests outside the Dáil, what it's highlighting to me big time is that these people, honest, decent people, God-fearing people, have been left down politically by their local representatives, by these, that they have to go up and march outside the Dáil. When somebody has to go up and march outside the Dáil, it is the last straw. They're being left down, and all they're being done is brought on this merry-go-round. And this is all this is. But at the end of the day, and I do emphasise this, and I want this brought across big time, this problem with mica is not a thing to do with the taxpayers of this country, and the taxpayers of this country shouldn't be trying to resolve this mess that has been caused here. And the longer this goes on, the more this is going to cost whoever is going to pay for this. Because even talking to people working in the building industry, insulated board has gone up by €30 since the pandemic. All building materials have gone up, and the longer the government pull this out and really drag these people through it, the more it's going to cost in the end. So this problem needs to be dealt with right away, immediately, 100%. These people are not responsible. They built their homes with the trust that there was
in good faith,
measures in place to protect them. These measures were not adhered to. There was no protection for these people that built these houses in this picturesque parts of Ireland. And these people, I understand what Paddy is going through. I understand the mental health. And as I said, what these people have been left down by a system that is rotten to the core. And these people, I can understand the stress and strain that they're under because of the way it's been handled.
Paddy, if we could finish up with you. I know we're expecting the Cabinet to put forward this scheme for compensation early next month. What are you expecting?
What am I expecting? I'm expecting 100% because it can't go no other way. The way it is when we cannot leave the old age pensioners behind. And if an old age pensioner cannot be taken out of her house and left in the house and say, they tell you, oh, you're going out now on the 1st September, you'll be back in on the 1st September next year. If that can't happen, she can't get $5,000. So 100% is 100%, and that's all we're settling for. We're doing a protest on the 8th of October in Dublin, and that's not going to be like the last protest we've done. This protest is going to let Europe see, because we've been pushed and our backs are to the wall, and we're coming out fighting. and we're on the 8th of October, and we're asking anybody out there that supports our cause, that is willing to come up and help us in Dublin on the 8th of October, because they have promised us an answer at the end of September. And if they don't come back and how their word to the end of September, then we're going back and we're going to Dublin on the 8th of October. We're giving them a week. 1 week. They promised 8th September, and and if they don't come back with it, well, that's it. We're going down and saying, hurry up. We're not. And this is the army we've got, and this is the fight that you're up against. If you try and get us a farce of a 90-10 that you tried to give us the last time.
Okay, Paddy, we wish you all the best with it. I'm sure we'll speak to you in the coming weeks, and all the best. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paddy, and thanks to Pat as well.